Hi, today we are going to prepare an enforceable contract purchase and sale in the latest version. First of all, we will have to look at the information page regarding all the definition of the contract, deposit, completion date, as well as the possible cost that is to be borne by the buyer. The cost to the buyer is mainly lawyer or notary fees for searching the title, drafting the contract, land title registration fees, survey certificate, cost of mortgage, if any, and then appraisal if applicable, land title registration fee, fire insurance premium, sales tax if applicable, property transfer tax, goods and service tax if applicable. So once you start with your buyer, you get them initial right here, and acknowledge that they already understand there will be certain costs involving the purchase of the properties. And then next, we go to the main page of the contract purchase and sale. You come with brokerage is Interlink Realty, our address, and then to be prepared by your name as a licensee, and the date, as well as the MLS number if this is a MLS listing, and then put in the seller's name as per information in MLS, and the buyer's name, which is your client, address and phone number, occupation, etc. Also the property address, PID, as well as legal description. Where you can find PID and legal description is usually from the information data in MLS. If it is not an ML listing, you can check with the BC assessment of these properties, and you find the PID and the legal description. Look it out and fill it in here. Purchase price will be the price that you want to offer initially. Once you plug in the dollar value, it will automatically turn into English numbers. And then deposit, usually 5% of the selling price, and then will form part of the purchase price, will be paid within 24 hours of acceptance unless agreed as follows. Within 24 hours after all subjects removed by bank draft and excluding weekend and public holidays. If the buyer decided to compete with other offer and want to offer a all cash offer, you can cross it out and initial and leave it the first line as a deposit of whatever amount which will form part of the purchase will be paid within 24 hours of acceptance. Okay? And then all money paid pursuant to this section will be paid according to section 10 or by uncertified check, except as otherwise. So this section 2 will be delivered in trust to Interlink Realty. So the deposit will be payable to Interlink Realty in trust. Have your client initial right here. Jumping to the second page, which is the terms and conditions. It is already prepared with 5 subjects. Subjects to financing, subjects to buyer's inspection, subjects to buyer to obtain and approve a property disclosure statement, and then subjects to the buyer obtaining and approving a copy of title search, and then this offer is subject to buyer obtaining approval for fire, property insurance on terms and rates satisfactory to the buyer on or before a certain date. These conditions are for the sole benefit of buyers. These 5 subject clauses are very important because if your client wants to walk away, you don't have this condition precedent, then you don't have a chance to walk away because the buyer are not in good faith and just want to escape and walk away without this condition precedent. The seller may have a chance to sue for non-performance or breach of contract, because if you have all those 5 clauses Each condition, if so indicate, is for the sole benefit of the party indicate, unless each condition is waived or declared fulfilled by written notice given by the benefiting party to the other party on before the date specified for each condition. This contract will be terminated thereupon and the deposit returnable in accordance with the Real Estate Services Act. This is the walkaway clause. So you got to have it before you can say, I don't want to continue. And then you better be careful to follow this walkaway clause. The seller always can come after you. Next page will come to the completion date. This is the date that the sale will be completed. You want to make sure it is a weekday, not a weekend nor holiday. Otherwise, they cannot be registered at the appropriate land title office. Possession day is always the next day after the completion. Say for instance, this one is Monday, then this will be Tuesday. At whatever time you agree on the date. And then if there is tenancy, then you have to spell out the detail of the tenancy right here. Subject to the following existing tenancy, if any. Let's say here is John Smith, start the tenancy on January 1st, 2017 with deposit of $500. Then it should be sufficient. If you have more information, you can put a C attach addendum to give more details for the tenancy, or otherwise leave it blank and will indicate this is a vacant possession on the subject property. Adjustment day is the same day as the possession day. Included items. The purchase price include any building improvement, fixture, pertinent attachment thereto, and all blinds, awnings, screen door, window, curtain rod, tracks and railings, fixed mirror, fixed carpeting, electric, plumbing, heating and air conditioning fixture, and all appurtenances and attachment thereto as viewed by the buyer at the date of inspection, including one fridge, one stove, one dishwasher, one clothes washer and dryer, all window covering, remote garage open, and etc. You can put whatever you like, but anything that is movable, then you should include it. Or if you don't want it, say, but excluding, let's say the crystal chandelier in the dining room, or the old junk car in the garage. Viewing day, the property and all included item will be in substantially the same condition at the possession date as when viewed by the buyer on this particular date. This is the date that set the standard. When you have the buyer move in, they will look at the condition. Is it the same, similar to the day they view? You have to have a day to measure whether you have retained the property at similar condition. Without the day, it will be very tough to monitor what is the standard. So the next couple of pages are all standard clauses. Page 5, for agency disclosure, you have to be particularly careful. This is a new revised form since June 2018. If you check on the box A, it will mean the seller acknowledge and receive and read, understood the Real Estate Council of British Columbia disclosure of representation in trading service and have confirmed that the seller has an agency relationship with, that is the designated agent for the listing agent, and who is working for the listing brokerage. If you're working for Interlink as a buyer's agent, then you should have your client initial here and put your name right here as the designated agent, and you are licensed in relation to us, Interlink Realty. C is when you are going to disclose the risk of associated with dual agents. When you are going to have a dual agency relationship, which is not allowed. So I would suppose you don't even touch it. C is not to be touchable. And D, that is when you have to disclose to the buyer that they might have certain risks if they choose to be unrepresented party. So which means you have a customer relationship with the buyers, which is not recommended. However, if the buyer insists, then you can have the buyers to initial here so that they acknowledge they have received and understood the so-called risk of unrepresented parties. And then if B has been completed, the seller acknowledge having received, read and understood RECBC form disclosure risk to unrepresented party from the buyer's agent listed in B and hereby confirm that the seller has no agency relationship. This is supposed initialed by the seller. This is initialed by the buyer. If they both agree there is a represented party happen. So going to last page, page 6, you have to fill in the date, the time that this offer will be open for acceptance, and then print the name of the buyers, have the buyer's signature, and also have the buyer's initial if they are Canadian citizen or permanent resident, or if they are not, initial right here. And then leave the bottom part for the sellers to fill in for acceptance and declaration. Now we come to disclosure representation in trading service. So when you on the way of finishing a contract of purchase and sale, you have to disclose your agency relationship with the buyer. That's why this disclosure representation in trading service kick in, and you have to inform your consumer. You have to give them an explanation and clarification of your relationship with your client. If they choose your expert advice and take you as the designated agent, these 2 pages can explain what kind of relationship you are going to have and what is the advantage of being a client, or what is the disadvantage as an unrepresented party. So it's involving loyalty, conflict interest, relevant information, protection on the confidentiality, and so on. So if your client choose to have a designated agency relationship with you, then you should get your client to confirm on 3rd page that you are providing the consumer this disclosure representation in trading service form, and you also explain to the specific legal duty owed by a real estate professional to the client, and explain the risk of being an unrepresented party in a real estate transaction. Then you also have to confirm you represent the consumer as my client under designated agency. Unless your client want to be represented by the whole brokerage, otherwise I would suggest you only click on this one. Or unless your consumer want to have a unrepresented relationship with you, then you will check on this box. Otherwise I would suggest you check on the top one. And then you put your name right here, your signature, and the date you give this brochure away in line with the contract. At the same time, you should have your consumer to confirm that the real estate professional disclosed the specific legal duties owed to the client, yes or no. And you have to confirm the real estate professional disclosed difference between the client and represented party, yes or no. And then you have them confirm the real estate professional disclose the risk of being an unrepresented party, yes or no. If the consumer choose not to confirm, this is the option. They have the right not to confirm, to be a client represented by you under this designated agency or under brokerage agency, or be an unrepresented party. Of course, they wouldn't put their name and signature here. Then what you can do, go back to the previous page, mark in a note so that on the date and the place you meet this guy and why they refuse to sign the confirmation, just to protect yourself. This is mandatory. And then you have to keep a copy for yourself and a copy for the brokerage. Every time you have a consumer come to you requesting detailed information, not a general question, then you have to fill in the form with the optional consumer confirmation. Otherwise, you will be in trouble, and we will be in trouble. After the disclosure of your trading relationship with the consumer, next thing is you need to provide this privacy notice and consent to the consumer, which provide a definition of so-called personal information and how is my information collected, and will the personal information be used and disclosed for any other purpose. It's similar to the previous working realtor. And then you will have the consumer to print the name, sign here, as well as your signature to acknowledge that you can collect personal information for the whole purpose to prepare the contract purchase and sale. And then of course, if you are in the course of preparing the contract purchase and sale, you need to finish this disclosure remuneration so that the client's name and the subject real estate address and your personal name, the brokerage name which is interlinked, and how much you are going to receive by way of percentage or a dollar amount from the seller, I presume. Then you put your name here again and sign here as the licensee, and then get the your client or consumer as a even unrepresented party to sign here to disclose your remuneration. After you fill in the disclosure form for remuneration, the next one, if possible, you have to collect the personal identification of your clients. If they choose to be unrepresented, then you can skip this information record. Otherwise, you have to put in the transaction property address, your name here as their sales rep, and then the brokerage on whatever date, and then verification of individual, their legal name, address, birthday, occupation, and then what type of documentation, identification number, issuing jurisdiction, country, document, expiry date, and then you can go on to the next couple of pages to identify your client risk. If they are low risk, as a Canadian citizen or resident physically present, or foreign citizen or resident that does not operate in a high risk country, or medium risk, then you have to explain what's the medium risk or high risk. Then you also have to explain your business relationship. Is it for residential properties or residential property income purpose, or commercial property or land for commercial use, or anything else? If your client happen to be a corporation, you have to fill in the transaction address, your personal name as well as broker's name, and then you have to verify the name of the corporation, corporate address, nature of principal business, the name of the director, and then type and source of the verification record, such as certificate of corporate status, annual report, government notice assessment, and the registration number of the corporation, a copy of the corporate record showing authority to bind corporation regarding transaction. Could be article incorporation, bylaw setting out officer duly authorized to sign on behalf of the corporation. So once it's done, you have pretty well finished your whole kit. However, if you are buying not a single family home, instead you are buying an older single family home, I have an addendum for you which is subject to the buyer at the buyer's expense obtaining and proving an inspection report regarding oil tank exists on the property. So if you are buying any property older than 30 years old, you should put this subject for oil tank clause into your addendum to protect the buyer. Because otherwise, in the future, if they find out their oil tank and the seller say, I don't know, you haven't checked it yourself, then the buyer can go after you. So to protect your future, not to be sued, then you better include this into the addendum as one of the contract condition precedents. If you are buying a new home for your client or strata, you have to put in subject to buyers receiving, approving the following documents with respect to information regarding Form B or strata bylaw, strata plan, meeting minutes for the last 2 years, any particular, say, entrance report or depreciation report, so that your client can fully understand what's going on in this strata unit. Particularly important is you have to put in a special levy. If a special levy is approved before completion date, the seller shall credit the buyer with the entire portion of the special levy that the buyer is obligated to pay under Strata Property Act, and the seller hereby directs the buyer's lawyer or notary to hold back such credit from the sales proceeds and remit to the Strata Corporation. It is important, if you miss this clause, in case completion date is a few months later, they happen to have something go into a special levy, then when the buyer complete the deal, they find out something's left behind that they have to pay for special levy. Then you guess who is going to be sued for the cost of the special levy? It will be you. So be careful. The next addendum is for new construction. If you happen to work for the buyer to buy a brand new properties, whether it's single family home or apartment unit, you should put this addendum in place. So it starts with the buyer will hold back the sales proceeds, the builder's lien hold back under the Builder's Lien Act and amount you to 10% of value of the improvement for 51 days. After the day of issuing a certificate of completion where there is no certificate for maybe another 51 days. After the later date the head contract is completed, abandon or terminate all the occupancy permits issued. The buyer's lawyer or notary will place the holdback in an interest-bearing trust account with interest accruing to the benefit of the seller. The party agree the improvement value add. This value usually to be provided by the developer and subject to buyer confirming on or before whatever day the seller is duly licensed pursuant to the Homeowners Protection Act, and a mandatory warranty insurance pursuant to that act is in place. This condition for the sole benefit of the buyer. Coming down, this is a fundamental term of this contract. The seller must have finished all work and delivered to the buyer on or before the completion date, and an unconditional municipal, city, regional district occupancy certificate or other evidence satisfactory to the buyer that construction is finished. Also subject to the seller providing to the buyer a copy of the home warranty insurance policy and the buyer being certified to this policy on or before any date. This condition for the sole benefit of the buyer. The buyer and an authorized representative of the seller will jointly conduct a walkthrough inspection of the property no later than 12 days before the completion date. The parties will immediately after completion of walkthrough inspection complete a deficiency list or mutually agree upon items that are remediated by the seller. The deficiency list, which will form part of the contract, will identify the deficiency and include a mutually agreed upon value of each of the deficiency to be remediated. Both parties will sign, date, and retain a copy of the deficiency list. The quantity of work and material used to correct the deficiency will be equal to or better than that of the surrounding construction. In the event that the deficiency are not rectified 6 days prior to completion date, the buyer's conveyancer will hold back from the sales process the amount specified for any uncorrected deficiency until all the deficiencies specified on the deficiency list are completed, and will place this holdback in the buyer's conveyancer's trust account. The seller agreed that if the conveyancing of the property has completed and any of the specified deficiencies have not been corrected, the buyer's conveyancer will retain the specified holdback until the seller corrects the deficiency, which shall not be later than 30 days after the completion date. The seller agrees that if the deficiency have not been corrected by the late date, the buyer's conveyancer may release the balance of the holdback to the buyer, and the buyer may correct the deficiency. So, once you finish this, get the client signed, and you are done. Present the offer, and good luck.